In the communion of saints, every life tells a story. Today, we tell the story of Saint Barnabas. He was there at the very beginning. He sold everything he owned and laid the money at the feet of the apostles. He was the man who believed in St. Paul when nobody else would. He crossed seas, faced stonings, was mistaken for a god, and gave his life for the gospel he loved. His name means son of encouragement, and in everything he did, he lived up to that name completely. He is Saint Barnabas, apostle, missionary, martyr, and one of the most important figures in the entire history of early Christianity. Barnabas was born on the island of Cyprus into a Jewish family of the tribe of Levi. His birth name was Joseph. He was sent to Jerusalem for his education, where he studied under the great teacher Gamaliel, and it was there that he sat beside a fellow student named Saul of Tarsus. The two young men grew up together, studied together, and learned together. One would become Barnabas, a pillar of the early church. The other would become Saint Paul, the greatest missionary Christianity has ever known. After the death and resurrection of Christ, Joseph gave himself fully to the new community of believers in Jerusalem. He owned a valuable piece of land near the city. He sold it completely and brought every last coin to the feet of the apostles, keeping nothing for himself. It was from this act of extraordinary generosity that the apostles gave him a new name. They called him Barnabas, son of encouragement, a name he would spend the rest of his life living up to. Then came the moment that changed the history of Christianity forever. His childhood companion Saul had become the most feared persecutor of Christians in the Roman world, dragging believers from their homes, approving the stoning of Saint Stephen. Then on the road to Damascus, Saul encountered the risen Christ and was completely transformed. He arrived in Jerusalem claiming to follow Jesus, and nobody believed him. Every door was closed, every hand withdrawn, every face turned away in fear. Every face, that is, except one. Barnabas stepped forward, took Saul by the hand, brought him to the apostles, and vouched for him personally. Without that single act of courage and trust, the entire ministry of St. Paul might never have begun. Together, Barnabas and Paul became the greatest missionary partnership in the history of Christianity. Sent from Antioch, where followers of Jesus were first called Christians, they sailed to Cyprus, preached through Pamphylia, Pisidia, and Lycaonia, and planted churches everywhere they went. In the city of Lystra, Paul healed a man crippled from birth, and the astonished crowd declared the two men were gods, calling Barnabas Zeus and Paul Hermes. The apostles tore their clothes in horror and cried out, "We are human beings just like you. We bring you news of the one true living God." Not everyone received the gospel with open arms. They were expelled from cities, threatened with death, and in Lystra Paul was stoned and left for dead outside the city walls. He rose up, walked back in, and the next morning they set out again. Nothing could stop them. Later, a painful dispute arose between the two partners over a young man named John Mark who had abandoned them on an earlier journey. Paul refused to take him along again. Barnabas, true to his name, refused to give up on him. They parted ways, each taking a different route. The result was not the end of the mission. It was the doubling of it. After years of missionary work, Barnabas returned to Cyprus, the island of his birth, where his success had made powerful enemies. Around the year 61, he was seized while preaching in the synagogue at Salamis, dragged into the street, and stoned to death. He was martyred for the same gospel he had first believed in Jerusalem. According to tradition, his body was buried by John Mark, the very young man he had refused to abandon, with a copy of the Gospel of Matthew placed upon his chest. In 478, Saint Barnabas appeared in a vision to the Archbishop of Cyprus and revealed his tomb. When excavations were made, his body was found perfectly preserved, the handwritten Gospel of Matthew still resting upon him exactly as John Mark had placed it. Saint Barnabas is celebrated every year on the 11th of June. He is the patron saint of Cyprus, of encouragement, and of second chances. His life reminds us that the church is built not only by the bold and the famous, but by those who quietly believe in others when no one else will, who give everything without keeping anything back, and who press on through rejection and suffering without ever losing their joy. Before we close, I would love to hear from you. Which part of Saint Barnabas's story touched you the most? Was it his generosity, his belief in Saint Paul, or his courage to the very end? Drop your answer in the comments below. May the soul of Saint Barnabas and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.